Hello, this is another one of my videos on the Universal House of Justice in the Baha'i world in the decade 1963-73. This one concerned with aspects of administrative functioning in the chapter on the hands of the cause and their related institutions. The main source material is the book Messages from the Universal House of Justice 63 to 86, and there's also an article by me and Moojan Momen, the Baha'i Faith 57 to 88, which gives some sort of context for these developments. I'll give the links to both of those sources in the notes below the video. So, aspects of administrative functioning. One aspect of the hands functioning which the House emphasized was the need for a continued close relationship between them and the National Spiritual Assemblies. This role had been delineated by Shafii Effendi in June 1957 and was reiterated by the House in November 1963. The hands and the National Assemblies bore a highly important joint responsibility in both protecting the Baha'is and fostering the worldwide development of the faith. The two institutions had complementary functions which could only be exercised effectively if the greatest degree of understanding and cooperation existed between them. This is from one of the House of Justice's messages. Everything possible then should be done to expedite and facilitate the free play of consultation between the two. The House returned to this topic in November 1964, stating that the development of a close cooperative relationship between the hands and the assemblies would inevitably strengthen the foundation and functioning of the cause. In this context, it was of the utmost importance that both the hands and the assemblies be fully informed of developments that affected the Baha'i cause in the geographical areas under their purview. Each assembly, National Assembly that is, should therefore work out with the hands for their continent what the most effective methods for keeping them informed as to what was happening were. For example, if they wished, they could share copies of their own minutes or send the hands copies of pertinent committee reports. The House also informed the assemblies that the hands were preparing schedules to meet with the various national assemblies in their regions, and would also invite the assemblies to occasionally meet with them and with members of the auxiliary boards in conference. The hands, or the board members appointed to act in their stead, should also be welcomed to attend the sessions of the national conventions and take part in their deliberations. The House reminded the assemblies of their decision that those appointed as board members should be freed from administrative responsibilities. This included service as committee members and convention delegates. The assemblies were also notified that the increase in the size of the auxiliary boards would increase the needs of the continental funds, to which both they and the local assemblies and individuals were encouraged to contribute. In October 1969, the House addressed a number of questions which had been asked regarding the functioning of the new continental boards of councillors and the long-established auxiliary boards. In particular, the request that the board members be allowed to work with the national assemblies on a regular basis. This was an idea which the House rejected. Firstly, the House stressed that there was a basic division of labour between the spiritual assemblies and the auxiliary boards. Authority and direction flowed from the spiritual assemblies, and it was the responsibility of the spiritual assemblies, assisted by their committees, to organise and direct the work of teaching the faith. At the same time, however, the power to accomplish tasks resided primarily in the entire body of the believers, and it was the principal task of the auxiliary boards to help arouse and release this power, whilst the assemblies would naturally try to do all they could to stimulate and inspire the Baha'is. The pressure of administrative work would make it difficult for them to spend as much time on this activity as they would wish. Similarly, if the board members were going to adequately perform their vital role of inspiring the Baha'is, they should avoid becoming involved in assembly administration. In this context, regular participation by a board member in the work of an assembly would endanger the collaborative relationship which should exist between the institutions of the National Assembly and the councillors, possibly undermining or impairing it. It would also diffuse the time and energies of the board members involved. If the board members became involved in the administration of teaching, they might gradually take over the direction of a national committee, thereby usurping the function of the National Assembly. Alternatively, the board member might become merely an agent of the committee or assembly, travelling hither and thither at its direction. There was also a division of labour between the work of the auxiliary boards and that of the continental councillors. Both were responsible for advising, stimulating and assisting the Baha'is, but the board members worked closely with the grassroots of the community, counselling individual Baha'is, groups and local spiritual assemblies. It was the councillors who were responsible for dealing with the national assemblies, although they could also work at the local level if they chose to. These distinctions did not mean that there should be no contact between the assemblies and the board members. Councillors could ask a board member to consult with the National Assembly for a particular purpose and acting as their deputy. A board member might also meet occasionally with committees of the National Assembly if this was deemed useful for the sharing of information and ideas, and the Assembly permitted it. In all cases, however, the participation of the board member should never become regular. An important area of collaboration between the board members and the national assemblies and their committees was the prompt and full sharing of information between them. Thus, board members should receive reports from national assemblies and national committees about the state of the Baha'i community, and information from the board members should be transmitted to the assemblies where relevant. This said, the board member's primary source of information about the community should be his or her own direct contacts with local spiritual assemblies, groups and individuals. By this means, both the councillors and the national assemblies would have access to two independent sources of information about the community, from the national committees and from the board members. Whilst the board members could send reports to the national assemblies, they should not include recommendations for action, as this would undermine the authority of both councillors and national assemblies. Board members should send any recommendations for action which they had directly to their councillors, and the councillors would then consider these and only send them on to the National Assembly if they approved them, perhaps modifying them in the process. The National Assembly, in turn, was not bound to accept such recommendations. It had access to knowledge and experience at which the board member might be unaware. One particular matter of information sharing was the need for the assemblies to keep the councillors and board members well informed about their plans for the future. It was the assemblies which planned and directed the work of the faith, and if these plans were well known to the councillors and board members, they would be better able to help the assemblies in urging the Baha'is to support them. Indeed, the board members should continuously direct the attention of the Baha'is to their National Assembly's plans and encourage them to enthusiastically support them. The division of labour between directive authority and encouragement still pertained, of course. Directive authority coming from the assemblies, encouragement coming from the board members. A board member might inspire Baha'is to pioneer, but he or she would then refer anyone who offered to pioneer to the appropriate committee, which would be responsible for organising the project. Councillors and board members were not concerned with administration in the sense that they didn't administer, that is, they didn't direct or organise the work of teaching the faith, and they didn't adjudicate about personal problems or conflicts. All such administrative matters with the responsibilities of spiritual assemblies. This didn't mean that councillors and board members were not concerned with administrative issues, however. To the contrary, it was their responsibility to give advice on administrative matters and observe and report on the proper functioning of administrative institutions. Thus, if a board member found that a local assembly was functioning incorrectly, or if a councillor found that a national assembly was functioning incorrectly, he or she should consult with the assembly concerned in a frank and loving way, drawing the assembly's attention to the relevant Baha'i texts. Again, if a board member found that the national committee was inefficient, he or she should report the matter in detail to the councillors, who would then decide on appropriate action. The assembly has sometimes misunderstood this distinction, thinking that councillors and board members should not give advice. The councillors in each continental zone had wide latitude as to how they should carry out their work. Similarly, they should give each board member considerable freedom of action within his or her own allocated area. Again, whilst the councillors should regularly direct the work of the board members themselves did not have to wait for direction. By the very nature of their work, they should be continually engaged in it according to their own best judgment. They should function even when they had not been given any specific tasks to perform. Of greatest importance, they should build up a warm and loving relationship with the Baha'is in their area, so that the local assemblies would spontaneously turn to them for advice and assistance. So thank you for listening, and particular thanks to my patrons for their kind support and encouragement. Without them I wouldn't be able to make these videos. Please, if you want to, you're very welcome to support my channel. Do like, comment and share on the videos, it really does help. Subscribe if you want to be notified of future videos. I'll give a Patreon link below in case you want to provide practical support. Next week we'll talk about the work of the hands of the cause. Have a good day.